You know, when you see people who have a hard time with this information, they say, no, that's not a part of this time of history. You have to go, well, wait a minute, maybe their assumptions, their preconceived ideas were given to them by somebody else, and now we have new information that changes all that. Let's be willing to be skeptical of the traditional assumptions. Have you seen what I'm talking about? That there are a lot of people that go through life and they have a set of assumptions.
Everybody does. Everybody has a set of assumptions, but they don't spend the time investigating or asking the questions about them. They just go, yeah, it's just like that, and I'll let it go. And they don't put any effort into finding out if it's true or not, or coming up with their own original thought on the idea.
That is what I felt, is that I needed to challenge myself. You know, what are the assumptions that I have that I never even worked through? They were just given to me. And I think that's, if I were to say anything to people, I would say that to be a thinker, you know, that faith and reason allows you to be a thinker, to basically think through these challenging questions and to own the answers. They're out there. And I think that people, if they just took the time, they could solve some of the big questions in their own lives, just as I had. Sure. You know, I had this question, I had to know. Why did I have to know? I didn't know that until I actually started to examine my own family. The fact that this single parent mother told me these stories, and then I was like, well, I want to go to those places that I heard about. And then I found out that the stories might not be true. Then it was just amazing crisis of faith. And I think that's the way it is for all of us. I had to decide that I couldn't quit. Even if there was nothing else, I had to solve this question. I was like possessed with this idea that we had to find out what the answers were.
Well, you had to know you were on the right track, right? I mean, you were getting some answers.
Yeah, we're getting positive
more questions,
feedback.
Obviously, but you knew that I got to see the other side of the mountain.
Dr. Walt Kaiser is a Bible historian, author, and former president of Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. I thought he had a good comment on how to deal with doubts.
My New Testament teacher, he always used to say, look, whenever you have a problem, put it on a back burner. Turn the heat down. Don't turn the heat up. It'll make a mess out of your mind. It'll boil over. But keep it on simmer. And he said, keep reflecting, keep looking. And he said, you'll be surprised how many of those pots you can take off the stove over the years as you come into more and more evidence. Because that's what life is about. It's about expanding our understanding and our involvement. And then you can put a new pot on the stove with a new problem. I like that. I think that was a good way to handle that.
All right, so you had a crisis of faith, right? So, I mean, how did this affect you personally?
Well, as I've talked about, the crisis caused me to go on the journey to ask the question. My wife talked with me about this, and she told me about a verse that I hadn't known about that existed. It's in the book of Ephesians. It says that before time, God has called people, each of us, to good works. And for me, that was an interesting way to think about what I was doing here. But maybe it's my calling to basically go and search for these things. And once I went and searched for them, I found patterns after pattern of evidence that matched all these different events. If you're going to do a story about people of faith that are on their journey, I realized that I was going to probably have to look back and say, wait a minute, I didn't have any answers to questions in year one, but I actually started to find answers. And then year two and year three and year four, and then I would be stuck year 5 or 6. And then I have to say, am I going to keep doing this? I thought, well, I've got this really enormous task of trying to uncover this story from my own personal interest, and then it became filming it for others. And as I was dealing with these questions about, are the stories in the Bible really historical? This question of perseverance was, am I going to quit? You know, because there are times when we just didn't have any money, we didn't know what we were going to do.
But then I would keep learning about more and more information, uncovering a pattern of evidence matching the Bible. I knew I just couldn't stop.
So what is it that we should look for in patterns?
Well, patterns are very important. You know, I had no idea how important they were, but it was the key to basically unlocking this whole story. Patterns are used in science to basically tell you things. If something repeats itself, it tells you that it's true. So if I take this salt shaker and I drop it, every time I drop it, you know, well, everyone sort of takes that pattern for granted. And that's the pattern of gravity, right? It's become a law.
I learned that one.
Yeah, yeah. If you fall off a building,
It's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's not a good thing at all. There are patterns in everybody's life, and it would be interesting for people to think, well, what are the patterns in my life? Does my life have a pattern that I can see? And the next question is, where's God in that pattern? Is God in the pattern of my life? And how have I responded to that? And so those are big questions that I think we're all asking,
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
All right,
Definitely.
guys, are you ready to order?
I think we are.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm getting a burger for sure.